Hello, I'm Wanda Miller, and welcome to Significant Voices. Today we're going to hear about a beautiful, smart, talented young woman whose life ended too soon. At the age of 25, Madison Shae Pilkington was the victim of a domestic violence homicide. Intimate partner violence is not uncommon in today's society. According to the U.S. Department of Justice Program on Domestic Violence, more than 1.3 million instances of domestic violence were reported in 2022, and that was the year that Madison died. Those figures are based on self-reported data, with nearly half of the domestic violence victimizations not reported to police. It is also important to remember that domestic violence is a category of crime that typically involves physical harm, bodily injury or assault, or the threat thereof. Unlike most other crimes, domestic violence is usually not sudden, isolated, or unexpected. These acts can be physical as well as psychological in nature, including financial abuse. Domestic violence harms the victim and presents dangers for immediate household members who witness it, resulting in years of trauma and physical injuries that become more severe or occur more frequently over time. Law enforcement personnel, child and family services and health professionals, community leaders, educators, and family and community members are critical in identifying, intervening, and providing much-needed services and support to domestic violence victims. Shae Pilkington will tell us about her daughter. She will talk about the devastation that violent crime leaves behind and the long road of healing. She will be brutally honest about the anger and the pain she and her family live with every day.
Madison was, she was a beautiful, she really was. She was a great mix of me and her dad. Strange mix. I really growing up, I wasn't sure who she looked like more. But she had these amazing freckles. She always bragged on saying that she did get them from my dad. But she was beautiful. And she was extremely smart. From the time she was born, she walked early, she talked early, she did everything early, to where I thought when I had my boys there was really something wrong with them. But she graduated with a 4.0. She had a full academic scholarship to Troy. She started drawing and painting and doing this pottery wheel thing. I mean, she could do anything artistic from the time she was probably, I guess, 4. She wanted that pottery wheel, those little ones for little kids. I've got little bitty bowls that she made, still got them put up. But she did. I don't know how many she broke, and we had to replace for her to make more treasures. But she started painting and sketching, and she went, through. I mean, she could just. It was amazing. We have a lot of her art. We had a little art show on her birthday. After her murder, but for the first year, and I mean, she very, very talented. She had one class left to graduate from UAB with her Bachelor of Arts. She was going into graphic design. But she was a workaholic. She got her a job at Buffalo Wild Wings when she turned 16. She just came home and said, I got a job. And she would work anytime anybody asked her to, when they wanted to be off. She just was so driven. She got that from her dad. He's a workaholic too. Always doing something. And she was just,
It's okay. I read a lot about her talent and that she was going to go to UAB and that she was at UAB and she was going to be an artist. What kind of art did she like?
Um, she a little bit of everything. I mean, she loved to paint, but she painted kind of I'm sorry, I'm having trouble thinking. I mean, you could show her something you wanted her to paint, and she could do it. She would take a picture sometimes, like she took a picture of our dog, our German Shepherd, and she sketched him, and then painted him, and I mean,
Yeah.
it looked just like him. She sketched a picture of Liam Hemsworth because that was her boyfriend. She thought when she was at a certain age, and it looked just like him. I mean, and then she did some abstract stuff, and she just would attempt it all, and she would do it. She, even anything like, decorating or, I do hair, and she would, I would joke, she'd tell her what to do, like I would do hers at home, I'd do hers, and, she'd do mine. And it would, I'd just show her one time. Anything, artistic or, anything to do with that side of things. She was just amazing at, and she was book smart. So
I've read a lot of the things that you've posted and put on different social media about your relationship with her.
Yeah.
And it just, everything I read is just that there was such a deep, deep love between the two of you and that she was such a huge part of every day. It seems like, and I didn't know you before this happened, but it just seems like reading through some of that, y'all had this special bond.
Yes.
That, and I think that more than anything else, when I talk to parents, especially, is really trying to get across that those things that are lost that nobody really ever knows about. And it's those day-to-day kind of things that, the daily phone calls or I know what time you're going to come by and see me, or we're going to go out to eat on Friday nights together, or we've got a favorite TV show, or those kind of things that
absolutely,
you can't really put into words for somebody what that means when you have to pass those milestones every day.
Yeah.
And that's what's so important to us, and what we thought about when we were contemplating doing the podcast or having some sort of platform where people could come and talk about really the effects of crime.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just like we're collateral damage.
Right.
It's real, everyday, heartbreaking things that, I think, time does heal some wounds, but there's some wounds that, you just can never heal.
No.
And, which is a huge part of what we fight for every day, and what so many people like yourself that even consider, after the loss that you've had, you consider, what can I do to help other young girls?
Yes.
What can I do? What would Madison want me to do? It's kind of the way, in talking to you, how I think that you're approaching it. And I do want to talk to you before we leave today about some things that you've been doing. But I want you to tell us just what you can about what happened in January of 2022, and kind of where y'all were and what led up to Madison's murder.
She, like you said, we had a really strong relationship and close, I mean, we really told each other just about everything, um, until him. Um, we just had that. We didn't throughout her entire growing up, but we had come to that. She was 25. Um, kids get to an age to where or they go through, they get 18, they think they know everything, and then they kind of age up. I know I have a 22-year-old son now, and she still thinks I'm dumb. But then they get a little past that, and it's like, oh, she's not as stupid as I thought.
Your mom's pretty cool.
Yeah, she's pretty cool, and she knows things. She wasn't dumb when she told me that, 3 years ago, kind of thing, and she had gotten there, and we were back to that, and I remember walking into her apartment one day because we would go eat lunch, at least every couple of weeks, and there were times that it didn't hit like that, but we tried, and I'd kind of hang out with her at her apartment, before or after for a while. We might watch a show or two of something we had been binging, and but she was getting ready one day, and she turned around and looked at me, and she said, "You know, okay, I can admit it now. You were right about a lot of stuff." and that was like a milestone to me. I was like, you've made it to adulthood. So, but we had been back there, she was my best friend. She was my best friend. I mean, I have friends, but not, that's just how we were. We called each other every day or texted. She would be at work because she worked all the time, because she had her own place and everything. But we watched different shows, like Supernatural and different things like that. And so if I was watching one or she had watched it ahead of me, she would text me, "Oh my gosh, you're not going to believe what happened," telling each other. We just, it was like that. And I don't know. I mean, that's just one little example. He has no idea. He can't even wrap his mind around what he took from us. He doesn't have that and never had that really. Not even going with the fact that he doesn't care, and everything. But I don't know. What else did you ask me? I'm sorry.
That's okay. Let's
What
take
was the original question?
let's take 1 second.
Okay.
Just a second.
And put a big dent in it or something. And so, but she had wrecked it, and she said, "I'm doing this. I'm not going to let y'all help me. I'm doing this one." And so she was saving up money, and before he moved in, she had another friend that lived close to her, and so she would just ride to work with her and ride home with her. And she had been putting off that last class because of that. And that's when I would go I would go get her all the time, which ended up being a really great thing because, you wonder if you would have spent as much time together, with the way she worked and all. It forced us in a way to make sure that we spent a lot of extra time. So anyway, so I was always going to get her, take her to doctor's appointments. Us going to lunch, every other week as much as we could. And, I have that.
Yeah. Well, and nobody can take that from you. I mean, and that's fortunate that, we have memories, but unfortunate that someone took so much away from you. I think that, I know that part of Shae's story is this was a domestic homicide, a domestic violence homicide, where someone that Shae trusted took, took her life, and this focus is not on him today, certainly, but I think that puts a whole different perspective on what happened to her. Simply because it was someone that she trusted, or someone that she knew, or someone that she was around a lot, that did the unspeakable. And I know that part of what you've told me that you are wanting to do is to share her story with other young women, so that if one life is saved, if there's signs that someone needs to get out of a relationship, or someone needs to get away from someone, that Madison's story can be a part of that.
Yes.
Because
and there have been so many.
Oh, yeah.
So many that have messaged me or called, and she's why they left. She's why they left. And, it's hard for women to leave. It's hard for them to leave. And even if they can, there's so many other factors as to why they don't leave. So many. Trauma bonding alone. It takes about 7 to 9 times of them leaving, typically, before a victim will stay gone. And it's just because of fear, even though they're out, just a lot of things. But the number one thing is, from the time they initially feel trapped, that person is going to first threaten their family or their kids. Initially, just not right off the bat.
Yeah.
Because any woman is going to put the brakes on immediately. You threaten her kids, or her family, she's not going anywhere.
Yeah. Well, it's all about that control.
Yeah. Yes.
Because
absolutely.
And I worked a lot around domestic violence cases, and what I saw in hearing these stories from women who were able to get out of bad situations was that there's a lot of steps that happen.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they don't even acknowledge them. They don't realize that little by little that person is taking control over
their money and
their life, their money, seeing their family, where they can work, who they can see, what they can wear.
Yeah, everything.
Your money, your automobile, so that everything that they
have to depend on them for everything.
Exactly.
Every single thing.
That's exactly.
And then that's how they are trapped.
Yeah.
Physically, mentally, in every aspect.
Yeah.
In every aspect.
And there comes a time, I think, from this, and this is just information that I got from these women. There comes a time when they know they're in a bad situation. They know that they need to get out of it, but it's a hard thing to do because a lot of women say, I was afraid if I left that he would kill me, or he would hurt my family, or he would kill my pet, or he would do all of those things that he had threatened to do.
Yeah.
And so they stay thinking that it's going to get better.
Yes.
And most of the time it doesn't, and it takes so many times for something to happen. And I don't know, how violent the situation was that Madison was in, but it's not always someone putting their hands on you too. There's a lot of mental.
Oh yeah, it was all
anguish.
yes. He beat Madison down. Madison was a feisty, fun, but very strong-willed and take charge person. She was not. I mean, there again, from the time she was a little girl, from 2 years old, she was wanting to pick out her clothes. Like, I would have to put, them in the drawer, pants and shirt, and say, okay, you can pick from these two, she was just that kid. And the person that I read, the emails and the text that I have went through reading between him and her, I don't know this person, her, they beat you down and take away every ounce of self-confidence and worth and everything about you that you have. She's one of those people that you would say she would never put up with that. Physically, mentally, because she was a little fireball. She's a little bitty thing, but everybody used to laugh and joke and say, girl, she'd jump on you like a spider monkey. That's just her.
Yeah.
But that's what happens. It's mental. Yes, they're hitting you too sometimes. Sometimes it's all mental. Sometimes, it's people that aren't hitting, but it's all psychological. Sometimes that's worse.
Yeah.
But he was hitting her. From the time he moved in, he was doing both to her. I had no clue. Nobody had a clue in my family. People at work did. They knew she was being abused, but they didn't know they were together at all. Okay. And that was some of his problem that night, see. They had all been out, a bunch of them from work. And she for the first time, she told one of the girls she worked with that that's who she was seeing, that's who was living with her. And see, that opened the whole can of worms, because when she told this girl that they were seeing each other, that let everyone or her know first, and then he knew she would tell everyone that that's who was hitting her.
Yeah.
It put all the pieces of the puzzle together, because when she found out he was living with her, it's going to be like, that's who's abusing her.
So nobody really knew that she worked with, or
now that of course now I find out all kind of things, and I have fit things together, and between the detectives and what I have learned from the people that knew her, more knew than they said. I know of at least 3 that were close to her that she had, one of them knew, no, the 3 of them both, actually, I'm sorry. they all know who it was and didn't tell. Being, they've been thinking they were being,
Yeah.
true to her wishes. How'd that work out for them?
Yeah. And could they really wrap their head around the fact that how bad it could have ended? How
Right.
could they have known that? But what a difference it would have made if they had said something.
Right.
If they had just said, what they felt like was going on so that somebody could intervene.
Right.
And that's that's something they'll probably regret for the rest of their lives.
And I'm sure, I'm sure it's horrible to live with.
Yeah. And it doesn't help you. No, it doesn't help what ended up happening.
Right. But I have forgiven them, that's between, because I know they know that. I know I don't have to tell them that. They know it. And that's just like you said, they have to live with that. And, I don't want to put any more guilt on them than they already have.
Yeah.
I just hope they've learned something from it.
I do too.
People have to say something.
Well, and there's a big campaign for that. A lot of agencies that are advocates for domestic violence victims, that's a huge focus for them.
Mm-hmm.
And to get that out to the public, where if you see someone that you think is in a bad situation, to say something or ask something, or do something that would give them the opportunity to get help.
Mm-hmm.
Because just that one person reaching out may be the key to somebody knowing that there is a way out and that they can be safe, because the fear of leaving. And and a lot of times when I would talk to people, and it was very easy for me to say, you need to leave. You need to leave today. You need to, you need to walk away from everything you have, everything that's normal to you, your home, your everything. I want you to I just want you to walk away from it. It was very easy for me to say that, and very difficult for them to do it.
Yes.
And because I would try to think from their perspective, what if someone told me that I couldn't go home tonight, and I'd have to leave everything I had, and I couldn't go to a shelter because I couldn't bring my dog, or I couldn't bring my stuff with me because I could only bring so the clothes on my back. I just had to leave.
It's hard.
So it's difficult, and it is leaving is also the time that the worst can happen when someone is put in a position where they know they're going to lose that person. So and you never know what the victim is feeling at that point, whether they're processing that and trying to figure out how to leave, or whether it's going to get better, or whether they're just
and they think that it will. They want it to so much that they think it will. And if someone, that's the thing though, it's not. You cannot change them. They are not going to change. Someone that hits and abuses women or children, it's like saying that you can change a pedophile. You just can't. You can't.
Yeah.
And someone that abuses women, it's just not going to happen. You can put him in anger management. Let me tell you something. Cortez Warren, he has a 35-year sentence. Even if I can keep him in prison for 35 years, which will be a big struggle, If he gets out in 35 years and is 68 years old, if he gets into another relationship, he will hit that woman.
Yeah.
He is a narcissist.
Mm-hmm.
If you abuse people like that, you are. If you start researching it, it's pretty much inevitable. It's just that type of personality.
Yeah.
Is who will and who has that, who can. You know what I mean? Who has that capability to hurt people.
Yeah.
And it's just going to happen. Even if they go through what they call anger management crap in prison, when they get out, it's just in there.
Yeah.
You know, they might keep it inside and let it bubble up, but it's going to come. It's just the way it is.
Yeah. And you know, the way that you have described Madison and her outlook on life and her personality and her talents, and you try to weigh it against a person like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just very hard to understand. And there's no answers, I guess, but it's hard to reconcile how those two people would ever be together.
Oh, because that's not who she met.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
They are the most charismatic. They're the most charismatic, approachable. They just draw you in. Their personalities.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, they are. They win you over. They buy you gifts. They take you to nice places. They do it quick. They kind of lure you in quick into. They draw you into the relationship because they want to move quick. They're the ones that want to marry you in 6 months or less. Those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
Because they want to get you hooked quick.
Yeah.
And then that's when things start moving. Not just like you said. You know, it's not always fast, and then they start abusing. That's the thing. No, that you don't meet the guy that's going to be beating you. Yeah. They suck you in with the good.
Yeah.
Extra good. And you're thinking, wow.
Yeah.
He is my knight in shining armor.
Yeah.
He's so protective. He is just, the best. Look how protective he is when we're out in public. He makes me feel so great and safe. He loves me so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the person that Madison met.
Yes. Absolutely. And Madison wanted that so much. She did. She was looking for her boyfriend that she really thought she would marry died. And he that happened when she came home from Troy. And that's another, I could tell you so many things, but she got sick and moved home from Troy and then transferred to UAB. And that's why she was home, and that's why she was later getting her degree. She was spacing out her classes. So, but Blaine died, and it just really, that was the one person that she was truly in love with, and, thought that they would get married. And when he died, it really tore her down, I mean, she just, I don't know. I mean, she was okay, but it was like guy choices, and it was like she really didn't care anything after that about getting married and stuff. You know what I mean? She she was focused on her career and all that kind of stuff. But it was like, as far as, as in her mind, Blaine was gone, and, whatever, kind of thing. So, she had that heartache and everything.
Wow.
But I do want people to know what happened to her and, things like that.
Well, and you share as much as you want to about that part of your story, because this is just a horrific crime. I mean, excuse me, and those several days that you didn't know what had happened to Madison, or you didn't have a full picture of it,
Mm-hmm.
I think is important, because he knew what had happened to her.
Yeah.
He knew.
Yes.
So if you want to share whatever you feel comfortable with about what happened to her, and what, not only what he took from you, but how he took her from you. I'm going to stop the recording for just a moment to give you an opportunity to opt out of listening to the rest of this audio, if you choose to do that. Shae and I spoke at length about how much she wanted to share about not only Madison's life, but also the way she died. She decided she wanted to tell as much of her story as she could, because she feels it's important. And I agree with her. It's part of Madison's story. It's part of her life, and it's part of her death. But I did want to give you the opportunity to not hear what she has to say. I think she's gotten her story across about who Madison was, how much she was loved, and how much she loved her family and her friends, and what kind of future that she was going to have. So we can give you a few seconds before we move forward and give you the opportunity to make that decision. And of course, you can stop at any time, but I did feel like I needed to let you know that. So thanks for listening so far, and we'll move forward.
Well, it was January. Well, let me go back to Christmas. Thanksgiving, because I knew of him. I knew he was living with her, but I had not met him. He had moved in around, he had been there about 6 months, living there. But I say 6 months as of January, so I guess he, what would that make it? August-ish?
Yeah.
So, and I didn't know it first. Yeah, I didn't know it first. I think he was getting evicted from his apartment, actually, and that's why she let him back in. And so it was her place. And that was just like you were talking about earlier. I just want him to go nowhere. She may have been trying to get him out at the end, but she wasn't going to lose her place.
Yeah.
That's just how she was natured. But she had let him move in, and so I knew about him, and we would talk about him. And, she would, tell me funny stories, that kind of thing. And then Thanksgiving, he brought her over to our family get-together. And I'd been inviting him to stay, before it got here. And supposedly he was going to stay when they got over there. He didn't. And so that was kind of weird. And then Christmas, he didn't come. But I always make her come spend the night Christmas Eve. And the boys, everybody has to spend the night. And so she was with us the whole time, and to Christmas night. But I still, as much as I was around her, we just have never had anything like that in our family happen. So So I didn't even know what to look for or anything. And it was winter. So she kept her body covered up with cloth. She wore long sleeves and pants. And, there was 2 different times that I can remember she had like a bloody spot in her eye, like in the corner of the inside of her eye. And she came and was getting in the car and she said, before you say anything, I scratched the inside of my eye. Well, later, when I told my husband about it, he said, that's from being choked.
Yeah.
But I didn't know. So I believed her. And then another time she was getting in the car when it went to pick her up, and she had a place on her forehead. And she again said, and she was klutzy. And so it wasn't out of the norm, for her to do something like that. She said, I hit my head on the cat, like she said she had left the cabinet up and putting dishes up, and it hit her head. Well, that was something that was so Madison to do. And so she knew the right lies to tell me so that I wouldn't question or be worried. So anyway, then, so come January, it was January 27th, or no, yeah, the 26th, they were all at work. She was at work with them, and when they got off work, they went to Gabriel's bar in Hoover. And they were just all having drinks, a bunch of them from work, and he came. He was not nice to her at work. He was real, hell, if he didn't want anybody to know, he was almost made it obvious by how stern he talked to her above everyone else. And, it was like he was so hard on her when he wasn't everybody else, kind of thing. She did tell me that a lot. And so he showed up a little bit later to Gabriel's, but they were all there. And that's where she told the girl that it was him. I think she had been drinking already, and that's when she told the girl that that's who was living with her. And so he was irate. And I don't know if there was other things he was mad at or not, but she left. One of the girls took her home to the apartment, and she was crying and, very upset. And she was telling, the girl to leave. And there was a couple other people there, and she was telling everybody to leave because she knew he was on his way to the apartment, and she was scared. And so everybody left, and what happened then, or the time frame of it, they know she died the 27th, so he came in there and, just he beat her throughout that apartment. He drug her by her hair, he threw it, there was hair on the steps outside. He stomped on her. Her face, she was unrecognizable. He wrapped her in a blanket and put a bag over her face. Put her on the couch. She was in a blanket she was like that on the couch. But he had tried to get her out of the apartment. He had pulled his car down by the patio. There were tire marks. I figured he just couldn't get her body over the railing himself. by the grace of God. That would have been the icing on the cake for me.
Not to be able to find her.
Yeah. And so that was the 27th. And the 28th, he just kept running the apartment. I guess trying to figure out what he was going to do. He was trying to clean the crime scene. He left a couple of times. Went to one of his other buddies' houses. I'm sure trying to get him to help him. And apparently the guy said, but, and that went on, he just let her lay in the apartment. He had the air cut all the way down, like he was, helping something. And so I didn't talk to her. The last time I talked to her was right before she left work, the 26th, and then, because it rolled over. I talked to her about 9 o'clock on the 26th, and then they went to the bar and didn't get home till after midnight, and so that's, and so the 28th, I texted her, but she didn't respond, but she was off that day, so I thought, well, she's sleeping, because if she had an off day like that, she'd sleep all day. And so I didn't think anything about her not answering me.
Okay.
And so the 29th, and I say the 29th, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. One of this little girl from Baumhauer's sent me a message on Facebook. And she said, I'm hoping you're Madison's mom. She said she didn't show up for work. She didn't know she was off Thursday, that day. She said she didn't show up for work, and, we're concerned. We went to her apartment and all the lights were on, but nobody came to the door. And we just wanted to tell somebody. Because they knew for her not to show up, I told you earlier, Madison did not show up for work.
Right.
And when I read it, it was, I don't think I thought she's dead. But it was like this immediate sick feeling. I thought, oh my gosh, she's like so sick she can't even answer the phone, or something. And so I jumped up and pulled on some clothes, and I nudged Randy and I said, something's wrong, Madison. I'm going down there. I'm leaving. I'm going down there. And he said, well, wait a minute. And so he pulls, he goes with me and he drives. And the whole way down there, we weren't saying anything to each other. It was weird. I mean, we were both worried, and so we get down there and he says, don't get out of the truck. And he got his gun. He was military. And so where her apartment was, you walked up on the main, or on the middle level, and you had to go down the steps to go to her apartment. And so he went down, and I had given him my key to her apartment. So he goes in, and he sees something on the couch, but he goes in and clears the apartment to make sure nobody was hiding in there. And then he goes back to the couch, and he just touches it pinches the bag and pulls it up. And I'm sure just lets it go because of the condition of her face.
Yeah.
And wanted to be positive that it was her. And so he does the same thing to the cover. And he could see her. She had this plain little cross tattoo on her side. And he could see it. And the whole time I'm sitting in the truck thinking, what is taking so long. This is taking too long. What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Finally, I thought, I'm going out there. And I opened the door of the truck and I get out and I'm walking. And about that time, I felt like 20 cops just swarm around me, going down the steps. And so, of course, then I'm picking up my pace and I start down the steps and Randy was standing there about halfway. And I said, is she in there? And he was kind of nodding his head, yes. And I said, is my baby girl dead? And he just, tears start running down his face. Then I remember a lot, the policeman keeping me out of the apartment, blocking the door and the screaming and it's as bad as people imagine it to be, because we've all thought about it. Every mom, she can say that, anybody that says they have, because it's everyone's biggest fear. But it's as bad as everyone can imagine it. It's worse. It's so much worse. Even though I know I'm going to see her again, because that's who we are, and I know where she is, it's not enough, because all of us have to die to all be together again. And from what I know and what we believe, and I know, we still have to all be together again. And I have 2 boys that have grieved their heart out for her. 2 younger brothers that she was the boss of. All growing up, and they depended on her for a lot still. Yeah. Even though they don't want to admit it.
Well, that's the things that, again,
yes.
That's the things. It's the little things. It's the siblings and the special times and the being the big sister and just the presence of that person being gone.
And I couldn't even see her. Couldn't even see anything about her one last time.
Yeah.
Couldn't hold her hand, just that's mama stuff.
Yeah.
And it's hardcore, even though people don't think about it. I mean, I had to go into that funeral home, and I was begging. I said, I know I can't see her. Can you at least just lift that enough to let me hold her hand? And he said, no, ma'am. This is something that it's just so unbelievable. And there's days that I still, for moments, think, this can't be real.
Yeah.
He could not have really done that to my baby. Why didn't he just leave the apartment? If he was that mad, why couldn't he just leave? Yeah. That's evil.
How could someone go into a rage like that and do that to someone that he was supposed to care about?
Yeah.
There are no answers to that. And unless someone has been in your shoes, they have no way of knowing. But every parent that I talk to says those same things.
Yes.
Those same things. They say, I couldn't see my child. I couldn't have an open casket. I couldn't, the way they died, and like you said, just wanting and wishing and waking up thinking that this has got to have been just a really bad nightmare. And I'm going to wake up and everything's going to be okay. And that's, again, and I know it's hard telling the story, but the importance of telling the story is so that people will understand. Every day we try to get people to understand violent crime from the perspective of the victims, the people who are affected the most.
Yes.
When an individual makes a conscious decision to harm someone or take their life and change so many people's lives with that one decision. And, so it's easy. And I was guilty of this before I became a crime victim, of just reading stories or in the newspaper or hearing them on the news and saying, wow, that's terrible.
Yeah. Me too.
And changing the channel.
Mm-hmm.
Me too. And maybe thinking about it again or hearing the story again or sharing. Did you hear about that? What happened?
That was so sad.
That was terrible, wasn't it? That was so sad for her or him, or, I hate that for them. And then carrying on. But I think once you're affected by something, by the actions of another person, about people making decisions to not give a whole lot of, or not caring, or not valuing.
Yes.
That's the better word. Not putting any value on someone's life.
Yeah.
Or the lives of the people who love them, or and there's so many people that are affected when something like this happens. And, so
it changes you at your core.
Yeah, it changes you in ways that you don't even know you can be changed.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even really think about, and everybody deals with bad things happening in their lives, and crisis and things that you have to get through. But there's something about another human being harming a person or killing a person, and and I tell people sometimes, until you've looked into the eyes of someone that has no value for your life, that could care less whether you live or die, then it's hard for you to understand.
Yeah.
And when you've been in that position, it's like you said, you don't go back.
Right.
In your situation, knowing what he did, and that he really didn't care. He didn't care about your feelings. Even getting beyond Madison, he didn't care what he was going to leave behind, for you to have to deal with. And that just changes the way you look at things, the way we do a lot of talking and trying to explain your stories to people who are making laws, changing laws, enforcing laws, and to explain to them from your perspective what that means. Because most of us who are victims or who are dealing with crimes like you are don't know anything about the criminal justice system. We don't know anything about
It sucks.
court and how it, you know, you we all watch crime shows on TV, and there's a 30-minute ending.
Yeah.
And everybody's happy and goes home, and you know the case is solved, and the bad guy goes away forever, and you know it's
That'd be nice.
it's a whole lot messier than that. It's a whole lot more bad.
They protect the victims more, or they protect the bad guys more than the victims. Seems like, anyway, to me.
Well, it seems like that when you're going through it, because the laws are in place to protect the people who are accused.
Yes.
You know, and unfortunately, that just means that the victim. I talked to someone the other day, and I said it's just like when something like this happens, you just fall off into the abyss, and you're just trying to.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you're underwater and you're paddling, just trying to keep your head above water and process and get through it and learn and accept what the values society puts on what happens to crime victims. Because there's no amount of punishment in my eyes for someone to pay for what they did to Madison and the way it was done.
You know, and it's funny you say that. Judge Streety, were you there at sentencing?
Yes.
At the end, when when Cortez and his attorney walked up, and Judge Streety said, "Do you have anything to say?" And Cortez shook his head no. Yeah. And then Judge Streety started speaking to him, and he said some things, and then he said, "There is absolutely nothing that I can do here to you today that would ever give any kind of justice for what you did to her."
Yeah.
And it's true. Yeah. It is true.
Yeah.
But, him not ever walking the street again would be a start.
All right, Shae, I can't tell you how much I appreciate, and I know that the people who watch this podcast are going to appreciate what you've shared today. It's heavy, it's emotional, it's heartbreaking. But within your story, there's so much that people need to hear.
Yes.
You've talked about domestic violence, you've talked about loss, and you've talked about the evil things that people can do and the effects that they have on you, your family, and everyone who knew Madison, and even those of us who didn't. And I think one of the other things that we've touched on is how you feel, and you've become an advocate yourself, whether you know about it, whether you know it because you're using Madison's story to reach out and to help other people.
I'm trying.
And that's all you can do. That's all you can do. And the mere fact that you're trying and getting up every day and facing the world and keeping her memory alive is beyond what most people could accomplish in a day. What would you say to families that have experienced a situation like yours, losing a child, and not just losing a child to a homicide, to a murder, but the things that you face every day, no matter how you lose a child? I mean, I know we've touched on that a little bit, but let's finish up with that and just offer your thoughts up on that.
That you're normal. that everything you feel as crazy or as terrible as you may think your thoughts are, or as crazy maybe as you think you're going, or you're normal. It's normal. I mean, for what you are going through, every terrible thought, every morbid thought you maybe think you're having, from picturing them in the ground to, maybe if they were murdered, to all the things that you would do to them to get revenge, just anything. We are different creatures now. We're part of a club, unfortunately, but our brains are trying to process something that we're not equipped to.
Yeah.
We're not made for this. Our brains are trying to wrap around something that is just unimaginable. Our hearts and our souls and our minds just can't. And so our brains just come up with crazy stuff. And especially in the beginning, don't think that you're going crazy and you need help, which you need counseling, but that's just to learn to cope and deal with what you're going through. The counselor's going to tell you the same thing. You're normal. You're normal for somebody that's kid's been murdered or kid's been, has died. So don't think that something's wrong with you, or that you are a terrible person, or just ride with it. It's going to be bumpy. It's going to be long. You're going to sink down to the lowest you've ever been, and you're going to rise back up, and you're going to sink again, and it's going to be this way. But I didn't think this would ever be achievable, and it's still not. From November till maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, it's been the worst time that I can remember, and it's been 3 years. 3 years in January, and this third year has whipped me worse than any time yet. But I have to keep going because I have 2 boys, and you got to find something to keep going for, or you won't.
That is true. And you are a member of a club that you never wanted to join. And there is a lot of strength in you knowing, and other families out there, that there are people like you that are sharing your stories. And when you come together with people who've experienced life things, similar things that you have, there is such a strength and a connection, because you are in a group of people who have experienced something that most people haven't.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I thank you for talking with me today and sharing your story and sharing your insights and reaching out to help other people.
Well, I'm glad to be here. This was really great. I want to help.
Well, this won't be your last time on, so we'll do this again, and do some more talking, and maybe get together and do some more specific things that will help families that are going through the same thing you are.
Great.
Okay. Thanks, Shae. Appreciate it. If you or someone you know needs support and assistance, please call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-7233, or visit their website at www.thehotline.org. If you're in Alabama, please go to Alabama Coalition Against Domestic Violence at acadv.org, or call them at 1-800-650-6522. If you're outside of Alabama and need national assistance, call 1-800-799-7233, and you can find crisis hotline information, shelters, legal services, and safety planning. You can also call us at Vocal, Victims of Crime and Leniency, at 334-262-7197, and we'll be glad to help you find the services and support that you need. We thank you for your support. Please visit us also at vocalonline.org to learn more about the mission and history of Vocal, of Victims in Crime and Leniency since 1982. Please like and subscribe to our growing platform. Your support is very important, and we thank you very much.